What's up, guys? Coming at you from Shenzhen as usual, and I haven't done one of these videos in a little while here where I just fire up the camera and have a chat with you, but a lot has happened over the last couple of days. And I had my camera equipment all set up because I just finished an interview with Liu Xin from CGTN, which is related to what's happened over the last couple of days. And that is that one of my videos went extremely viral in China. And that was the 13-minute rant that I had during the Xinjiang panel that was put together by a friend in Canada. And so that video has been shared by pretty much every single media outlet in China. It's probably been seen hundreds of millions of times. But perhaps what's even more surreal than that is that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs played the video during a press conference. You know, when they were setting up, they were bringing this projector screen in, and people were saying, oh, this is weird. They've never done this during their press conference before. And it was to play my video. They played another video as well, but it's just absolutely surreal. And afterwards, over 20 media outlets contacted me for an interview. But they're Chinese domestic media outlets. So far, no. There's one foreign outlet that contacted me from an Iranian TV station, which I might do. But all of the Chinese ones I declined, and I only accepted CGTN's one. The concept behind declining it was, it's domestic media here for the most part. I know some of them do English content, but I'd be kind of, talking about debunking the Xinjiang propaganda lies. I'd be kind of preaching to the choir here. Most people here know it's absolutely BS. The purpose of that video was to reach foreign audiences. And I felt like if I went on too many Chinese TV stations, that would actually be counterproductive to my goal to balance the narrative out a bit and maybe shift the needle to a more balanced conversation point in the West. So I declined them all. With CGTN, I ended up agreeing to go on Liu Xin's show because I think she's got a bit more of a foreign audience, but more importantly, she had a staff, Calvinson, who was very, very persuasive. He wouldn't take no for an answer, but I was still saying, no, I'm just not doing it for this reason. But finally he says, okay, I understand. I'm just, I grew up in Canada also. I just want to help somehow with pushing back against this narrative, or to, just spread the truth. And he says, I grew up in this small, you probably won't know it, this small nowhere little town. And I was like, I grew up in that town. And he went to the same school as my brother and all this kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, this was like a Lao Shangren. What's the best way to say that in English? Like I don't know how to say, like a hometown, from a fellow person from my hometown. So I was like, all right, let's do this. So I think the interview went pretty well. It was, I think the flow could have been a little bit better, but overall it was pretty good. But I just wanted to explain to you guys that you might see that coming soon. But other than that, I mean, there's so many people who I haven't been in contact for a long time here that has been reaching out to me saying, hey, is this you sending me the video? It's just been a really weird experience. But I hope it makes a difference where I'm originally intended on it doing so, which is, as I said, overseas. Other than that, I didn't really have too much else to talk about, but I was going to wrap this up with something fun since I have the camera going anyways, and that is a set of tweets that I saw recently that were just unbelievable, I think, and I responded to it with my own thread, which I will also read to you. So let me pull those up first, and we can take a look at them together. So this is from somebody named Emily Rahala, if I pronounced that correctly. She's with the Washington Post, and before she was with the Washington Post, and also Time in Beijing as the China correspondent. So she puts together this thread here, and I'll read it for you. It says, the gap between how China thinks it's doing in the world and how the world thinks China is doing in the world is getting wider by the week. There seems to be a genuine belief among some smart people in PRC that China's domestic policy and diplomatic antics are projecting strength and confidence, embracing haughty foreigners, when in reality, across much of the world, said policies are turning many people with no real previous opinions on China into critics, and many people are in awe of the awkward, overheated Twitter posts. Many are laughing at them. And she finishes off saying, and yes, sirs, I'm aware that there's a huge gap between how Americans see America in the world and how the rest of the world sees America in the world. But this has changed less this year, whereas China's sitch seems very much in flux. And I'm worried about the disconnect. I mean, like how condescending this set of tweets were. That China didn't remember to stay in its place. Like, how dare they come and speak back in anywhere near the same language that the U.S. uses towards them? I'm referring specifically to especially the Alaska meetings. But I'll go into my response, and I'll play you some of the little clips that I used to supplement my response. All right, so I wrote, interesting thread. Emily, who says it's embarrassing that even smart folks in China don't know their place anymore, kind of really embodies what China was trying to communicate in Alaska. There really is a propensity for condescending Americans to think that their opinions and values represent the world's. Because obviously that was one of the comments in Alaska, was saying that you guys are talking about opinion and everything like that. You guys don't represent global opinion. Then I go on to say that, ironically, it's actually folks like Emily who are the world's most disconnected from reality. She either believes, or would like people to believe, that Trump was an anomaly instead of someone who exposed America for exactly what it is, a racist country that exploits the globe. Now, I want to be clear about something. There are a lot of people in America, there are a lot of Americans who are doing so many things on the ground to fight against this racism. Even these people whose hearts are in the right place, they know that America is a racist country, and that's exactly why they're doing the activism that they are, to get it back to a place, well, I shouldn't say back to a place, finally get to a place where there isn't any racism. I move on by saying the fact that the American military is still in Syria protecting the oil today while ordinary local Syrians outside of the gates are digging through garbage for food shows that all Trump ever did was say the quiet bits out loud constantly. So that is in relation to racist comments, saying racist comments out loud, but also in relation to foreign policy. I'm going to play a short video for you here of what Trump was saying about Syria. Let's watch that together now.
I would just bomb those suckers. And that's right. I'd blow up the pipes. I'd blow up the I'd blow up every single inch. There would be nothing left. And you know what? You'll get Exxon to come in there in 2 months. You ever see these guys, how good they are, the great oil companies? They'll rebuild that sucker brand new. It'll be beautiful. And I'd ring it, and I'd take the oil.
And then they'd say he left troops in Syria. You know what I did? I left troops to take the oil. I took the oil. The only troops I have are taking the oil. They're protecting the oil. I took over.
We're taking the oil. We're not taking the oil.
Well, maybe we will. Maybe we won't.
They're protecting the facility.
I don't know. Maybe we should take it. But we have the oil. Right now, the United States has the oil. So they say he left troops in Syria. No. I got rid of all of them other than we're protecting the oil. We have the oil.
So we want to worry about our things. We're keeping the oil. We have the oil. The oil is secure. We left troops behind only for the oil. We've kept the oil. We stayed back and kept the oil. Other people can patrol the border of Syria, frankly, and Turkey. Let them. They've been fighting for 1,000 years. Let them do the border. We don't want to do that. We want to bring our soldiers home. But we did leave soldiers because we're keeping the oil. I like oil. We're keeping the oil.
It seems that the United States is staying to protect the oil. And at least President Trump is honest to say what the United States intends to do.
So yeah, there you have it. This is not a Trump problem. This is an America problem. The troops are still there, protecting the oil, making deals with the forces that are in control of it now. Again, literally, while Syrians are outside digging through garbage, there's a video of that as well. Like I said, he said the quiet bits out loud. This is American foreign policy. Even Assad had said in an interview, he said, Trump is one of the best presidents they could wish for because unlike all of the other presidents, he says exactly what they're really out for. They're saying they're interested in Syria's soil and oil, and that's why they're here. And so you saw that that message at the end from the Iranian ambassador kind of laughing at the same thing. It seems they're staying to protect the oil. But anyways, on to this tweet thread. So I continue by saying, perhaps Instead of gauging how much people hate China based on Twitter shitposts, Emily should actually ask folks in the global south for their opinion. So obviously, a lot of my followers, they're very aware of the geopolitical issues and foreign policy of America, of overthrowing governments and installing dictators and organizing coups and supporting mass killings for their corporate and geopolitical interests. But the video that I accompanied with this was from John Perkins, who wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And it was interesting. David Patrick was trying to put him in a situation where he got him to admit that China's doing the same thing that America used to now with their kind of foreign programs. And John is, even though he speaks against the American empire, he's still really pro-American, and he tried to find something to get China on. He spoke about how, some of the construction projects, some of the buildings that were built by the Chinese construction workers had problems. He was kind of digging, and he was saying, I think China's going to try to do the same thing, which was more projection than anything else. But when it came down to the wire, look at what he said his friends in the Latin American government said about dealing with China.
It's China studied what U.S. did, and now China's saying, we're going to take it to a whole different level. Do you think China's using any of that economic hitman business model?
I hate to speculate on stuff I don't really know. I certainly would expect that China would be trying to do that because that is part of the model. What I do know is what China has been doing in Latin America, for example, where I still spend a lot of time. I spend in a normal year, I spend 2 to 3 months in Latin America, in Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and many places. And I've seen in the Bahamas, I've seen how China is making huge inroads into these countries. But what China has done differently than the United States, and I asked my friends in high places and in some of the Latin American countries, why are you taking loans from China? Don't you think that they're going to do the same thing? That's how we'd much rather take loans from China than the United States. And I'd say, but wait, aren't they after your resources too? And they say, yeah, they're after our resources. We don't have the technology to mine, to drill for oil, to do these things. So we need outside country to help us. And we know that the United States has a record of overthrowing our governments and assassinating leaders. We all know that. And of building military bases on our soil, and of forcing us to vote against Cuba at the United Nations, doing things, exercising huge controls over us. And China hasn't done that. China's not built any military bases here. They've not taken out any of our presidents. They've not been involved in any coups. And so we'd prefer to take loans from them. So, and I'm not defending what China's doing by any means, because I think their motives are the same. But I will say that I think that they may have learned from our mistakes, from the U.S.'s mistakes in being quite so blatant as we've been in some of these places.
All right, so there you go. I mean, there's a lot of speculation from him there, but the one thing that he does know certainly is that these countries are far more comfortable dealing with China. And you saw that, a couple of years ago, the polls that were showing who the world sees as the biggest threat. And across the whole global south, they saw the U.S. as the biggest threat. So that reminds me of another really interesting tweet where somebody said, somebody pointed out that she had said, one of the biggest risks to China's stability and growth is America. And so there was a journalist who tweeted that and said, if you weren't worried, you should be now. Listen to how she is speaking about us. And just like this Emily journalist here, it shows how out of touch with reality they are. It's not only China that thinks America is the biggest threat to their safety, stability, and growth. It's the majority of the global south that thinks that as well. I mean, you can't go around doing the stuff you've been doing around the world and think that people aren't afraid of you. I mean, as you can see by what John was saying as well, America has a history of doing all this stuff, overthrowing governments, bullying people. And now there's finally another option. It's worth thinking about, too, in terms of, even if you want to say China's options, China's loans, China's programs, if you really believe that they're that bad, that they're these terrible exploitative programs, how much worse must your options be if they're still choosing China over the West's options? I mean, that's a basic logical question you can ask yourself. But anyways, I continue on with this thread here, and I say, Emily says her perception on the gap between Chinese perception and reality worries her, but in fact, the world has a lot more to worry about when Americans go back to thinking everyone loves them again, and they're once again a shining example of democracy, freedom, and a force for good in this world. And so for this, I included a clip which has some footage from Max Blumenthal's Gray Zone documentary on the NED, and then some clips from a really awesome YouTube channel called Renegade Cut. And I'll play that clip for you now.
The NED's first success was the defeat of the Sandinista government in Nicaragua's 1990 elections, replacing it with the right-wing party of Violeta Chamorro.
Las dictaduras del somocismo y el marxismo-leninismo hoy terminaron.
Since then, the NED has advanced U.S. interests in countless countries. It helped swing a Russian election for Boris Yeltsin in 1996. It drove a failed coup attempt in Venezuela in 2002. It orchestrated a successful one in Haiti in 2004, and another one in Ukraine in 2014, which paved the way for neo-Nazis to move into the political mainstream.
The system of global capitalism is not simply the natural outcome of markets. When a head of state or head of government is elected or assumes power in the global south, that ruler faces a secondary challenge outside of the governance of the people. They must also capitulate to the global north, endorse capitalism, and maintain the current unequal economic relationship and trade deals. If they do not, there is a good chance that this ruler or regime will be overthrown either directly by or with some assistance from rich nations. Most prominently, the United States. In 1954, the United States assisted in regime change in Guatemala. President Jacobo Arbenz threatened holdings of U.S.-owned United Fruit Company. The CIA equipped paramilitary troops, and the U.S. Navy blockaded the coast. The president was removed from power, leaving the nation run by a succession of military juntas. In 1960, the United States and Belgium ousted Congo's Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba. Belgium wanted to maintain its business interests in the region after decolonization. Lumumba was killed in 1961. In 1964, the United States helped oust Brazilian President João Goulart, whose left-wing politics threatened capitalism. In 1973, the United States backed a military coup against democratically elected President Salvador Allende, who was a socialist, in favor of the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, a fascist capitalist who was responsible for countless atrocities. There are a great many...
Yeah, so as the clip almost finishes saying that there's a great many more examples than just that. I mean, this is the reality that has been the U.S. for a very long time. And finally, there's an option that has come out now that can challenge America's hegemony. And that could have sparked one of two really valuable things. One, it could have, well, first of all, it's creating better options for the global south now, who have been exploited by Western powers for so long. But the second is this could have been a catalyst to push America to be better, to do better, to say, okay, you know what, we're going to compete, and we're going to offer something even better than the BRI. We're going to offer something even better than the loans that China's giving to these global south countries that they're building ports, roads, hospitals, and schools in. That would have been amazing. That could have been one of the benefits of no longer having one single superpower that does whatever they want, whenever they want. But I'm getting too far away from the topic of this thread now. So I'll finish with my last one. So my last addition to that particular thread was, granted, I will say that America has tried really hard to export their hate for China and affinity to beat up Asians in the street by pushing narratives like this, which are coming from state-sponsored orgs like the CIA's propaganda arm, Radio Free Europe, and so on, and the Atlantic Council. Then I put a couple of examples here. This is from somebody named Damir Marusik. I'm for sure pronouncing that wrong. But he deleted it, but I had stamped it before he deleted it, and it's saved on the blockchain. And he said, I don't think we need these categories. Illiberal order building. China is a beast of a country, and it's acting accordingly. It would almost certainly act in this beastly manner no matter its regime type. Norms and values aren't determinative, only expressive. So basically he's saying the Chinese people are beasts. It doesn't matter if they have the CCP or not. This is from a guy who is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. And so much for that. We hate the Chinese government, not the Chinese people narrative, eh? That's gone out the door with him for now. And then the second tweet is, and the tweet says, Ukrainian Chinatowns. The influence of Ukraine's Chinese diaspora far exceeds its small numbers, but some experts suspect it coordinates closely with the Chinese government. Read the full story on. And so this was, of course, retweeted by Jamie Fly. This is the organization that he's the president of, Radio Free Europe. And this is right in and around the time that the shooter in the U.S. killed all those people at that Asian business. He did eventually remove that post, but again, it shows that how hard they're trying to push this yellow peril of fear of China and even overseas Chinese people. So, give me a break if you're not trying to connect because these are Radio Free Europe is basically the propaganda arm for the CIA. So if you're trying to tell me they're separating the two things, the anti-China propaganda, the anti-CCP propaganda, with, sufficiently distancing itself from making people anti-Chinese, well, that's out the door too, because you can see they're particularly wanting to raise suspicion of people living in Chinese communities overseas. And again, like I said, export some of that xenophobia and anti-Asian racism that has kind of taken over in the U.S. So that's the end of that thread, but it really is interesting because she writes those things, and I don't know if she really understands that she's just full of BS, or she really believes the things she's saying. And if she does, I'm sorry, it's not some smart people in China who are out of touch with reality. It's Emily. And it's people who believe that narrative. It's people who look at that condescending rant that she went on and actually truly believes it. Those are the guys that are out of touch with reality. But anyways, if you like this format where I once in a while share some of my tweets where I go on these little kind of counter rants or whatever you want to call it, let me know and I'll do some more of these. But I'm going to finish this video here, but I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Peace.